Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, December 4, 2025. This meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or on the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the Planning Division office. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen, follow the instructions to access the meeting, and press star 9 to raise your hand, indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call?
Chair Orejo.
Present.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Schulke.
Present.
Commissioner Barcena.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead us. Please stand if able to, right hand over your heart, and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to agenda item C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information consent items and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take action on any item presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to D, consent agenda. 1, approval of the 2026 Planning Commission calendar and approval of the minutes for September 4, September 18, October 18, and November 6. Are there any items that the Commission would like to pull to discuss or vote on separately or differently? Seeing none, I'll just look for any general comments, any corrections for the minutes, and if not, I'll look for a motion to approve the calendar as distributed and the minutes as distributed. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I'll move to approve the agenda and minutes as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Seconded. Okay, thank you. It has been moved by Commissioner Dr. Lopez and seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart to approve the 2026 Planning Commission calendar, approval of the minutes for September 4, September 18, October 18, and November 6 as distributed. Is there any discussion before we vote? Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Aye.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulke.
Aye.
Commissioner Barcena.
Aye.
Chair Orejo.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you. For the first time with Section A and with no public hearings agendized for this meeting, there is no need for ex parte declarations. The meeting can go forward past public hearing and go past also study session reports and go on to Section H, community development staff updates. With an update on AB 130 and SB 131, CEQA reforms and impact on housing projects. Mr. Pearson or Mr. Zaragoza.
Sure. So good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Assistant City Attorney Jason Zaragoza. Tonight, Joe and I are going to be presenting on AB 130 and SB 131, key provisions of the bills that were adopted in June of this year, effective July 1. And both bills have the key there is streamlining housing developments in California, right? And so we'll try to keep the discussion high level. We'll do an overview of CEQA. Some of you have enough experience to probably teach a CEQA course yourselves, but so we'll do a very, very general high level of CEQA and then go into the key provisions of the bills, and then we ask to take questions at the end. With that, we'll begin the presentation. Okay. So here's an overview of what we're going to talk about. So background on AB 130 and SB 131. a high-level summary of key provisions. Excuse me if my voice goes out. I will try to power through these slides as best I can. So AB 130 will go over the key urban infill exemption that has been codified, as well as tribal consultation and labor standards. So again, key provisions of the bills. And then with regard to SB 131, the near-miss streamlining and what that means, as well as housing element rezoning exemptions. And then other CEQA exemptions and updates that have also been codified, but again, we'll try to keep the discussion more general. So again, going with the kind of basics, what is CEQA? As you all know, the California Environmental Quality Act, enacted in 1970, modeled after the federal, I wouldn't say equivalent, but the federal law, the National Environmental Policy Act. And it applies to projects that require discretionary approvals by public agencies, and then requires analysis of potential significant environmental impacts as well. And then, as you all know, as you have experienced this with various projects that have come before you, the lead agency must determine if a project is exempt, requires a negative declaration, mitigated negative dec, or a full-blown EIR. And so the purpose of CEQA, contrary to what some may believe, is not to prohibit projects. It's to require agencies to disclose potential significant environmental impacts, and then to adopt feasible mitigation or alternatives, or to explain why approval is justified despite those impacts. And so obviously there are challenges to CEQA. It's not perfect. Over the years, the scope of the analysis has expanded, and so there are cumulative impacts that come with that, right? Projects that take longer for review. When you're looking at longer-term impacts of a project, obviously, that can make the process take longer, cost more, and sometimes, as you have experienced as well, people can delay projects by either threatening lawsuits or actually initiating litigation, whether there is merit to that litigation or not. So again, you've all experienced some of that. So again, that was about as fast a CEQA overview as you can possibly give, but it is important background when going into what AB 130 and what SB 131 are attempting to do. So these are budget trailer bills enacted as part of the 2025-2026 state budget package. They were modeled on prior legislation proposals, AB 609, and SB 607, signed into law, as I said before, June 30, with an effective date of, an immediate effective date, actually, July 1, 2025. So the measures at a very high level, again, amend the Public Resource Code and the Government Code to accelerate housing production by establishing new CEQA exemptions and streamlining procedures with primary application to housing development projects. Okay, so AB 130 creates new CEQA exemptions for urban infill housing projects. As well, it does other things too, and we'll go into those provisions of the bill. And then SB 131 adds 13 new exemptions, streamlines review of housing projects that nearly qualify for those exemptions. And those 13 exemptions may not be directly related to housing development, but as you'll see in the last slide, they are exemptions that are meant to support the development of housing in some respects. Okay, so the definition of housing development project. So under AB 130, a qualifying housing development project includes projects consisting solely of residential units, mixed-use projects where at least 2/3 of the new or converted square footage is designated for residential use, or mixed-use projects of 500 units or more with at least 50% residential square footage and no transient lodging. So the exemption, it's important to keep in mind, it also applies to transitional or supportive housing, farm worker housing, and associated ministerial permits and public improvements. So the exemptions would also apply to any public improvements that are necessary in furtherance of that housing project as well. So it's not just the actual development of the housing, but also the ministerial permits and public improvements that go along with those projects. For a project to qualify for an AB 130 exemption, it can't be bigger than 20 acres. or 5 acres if it's under a builder's remedy or a builder's remedy project. And it has to be in a city or in an urban area per the census. And it has to be infill, meaning basically surrounded by existing development, homes, shops, parks, et cetera. So you've got a size requirement or acreage requirement, and then the fact that it has to basically be in a city or in an urban area as well. And then it has to be infill. For consistency, this part is interesting, that to qualify for an AB 130 exemption, the housing development has to be consistent with an applicable general plan, zoning ordinance, or where relevant, a local coastal program. And then where a general plan and zoning are not aligned, this, again, with the furtherance, with the idea that they're trying to streamline housing development projects, the project is deemed consistent if it complies with either document. So either the general plan or the zoning ordinance. And then the project has to achieve a minimum density equal to 50% of the default density specified in the certified housing element. So again, it's got to be consistent with either the general plan or the zoning ordinance. So prohibited sites, this is also one of those things where, like, if you ask questions on, like, would it apply in this circumstance or that one, the answer is going to be we don't know yet for some of this. But AB 130 generally bars the exemption for sites with wetlands, prime farmland, protected habitats, conservation easements, or local coastal zones. So, and then you got risky sites like hazmat sites, very high fire hazard zones, earthquake fault zones, flood hazards sort of zones. Even in those risky sites, the exemption might apply, but it would only be eligible if you have full proof of full mitigation. Now, what that means, we don't know. They didn't really give examples of what full mitigation would mean for projects on those specific sorts of sites. The other important thing here is that the exemption is not available if any portion of the project is for transient lodging, so hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, et cetera. The exemption also wouldn't apply if the project would require the demolition of any site that has been registered in a national, state, or local historic register before the date the preliminary application was submitted to the city. So again, would not apply if any of the project is for transient lodging, so hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, or if demo would be required for a historic structure. AB 130 also, and this is kind of, it's important, but it wasn't the main emphasis of the bill as I read it through the legislative history, that AB 130 would require a phase 1 environmental site assessment. And then if a recognized environmental condition or hazardous releases are identified, a phase 2 ESA as well, and then full remediation before the exemption would be eligible. And then for a project that's within 500 feet of a freeway, those buildings have to incorporate air filtration systems and HVAC units serving any habitable space. And then there would have to be it then prohibits balconies or operable windows that face the freeway. So that's to just minimize the exposure to traffic-related air pollutants. You've experienced some of that. I don't know necessarily with freeway, but certainly where like a project is near like a railway or something like that. But this is specific to projects. You wouldn't qualify for the exemption if the windows of a residential project face the freeway, and that again is to minimize exposure to traffic-related air pollutants. Okay, so this one is how do I put this? It can, even though the goal is to streamline housing, this one actually provides, I wouldn't say barriers, but additional time, right, to the approval process. So tribal consultation under AB 130 is mandatory. So the lead agency, which of course would be us for those projects in the city, must notify the California Native American tribe that's traditionally and culturally affiliated with the project within 14 days. The tribes would then have 60 days to request formal consultation, and if requested, the consultation must begin within 14 days of acceptance and then conclude within 45 days with an optional 15-day extension. I know it's a lot. It's on the slide, and we'll have to keep track of these days as we get experience with these projects. The other important piece here is that there's no agreement that's required, but any of those mitigation measures that are agreed upon, they become enforceable conditions of approval. So you may see those in projects that come before you, that again, if there are mitigation measures that are a result of these tribal consultations, they will be conditions of approval that will come before you as a planning commission. The other aspect of this is that that we have to defer to the tribe on the identification, significance, and treatment of tribal cultural resources. And then a final project decision has to be made within 13 days after the consultation ends. There is a provision in there that allows in certain circumstances for an additional 90 days, I believe. But those are the general timelines that would apply. Here's another piece of this that you all have experienced in some respects with regard to conditions of approval as well, which are certain labor standards or requirements that are imposed on some of these projects. So for projects where 100% of the units are restricted to lower income households, all construction workers have to be paid prevailing wages as determined by the DIR. And then for any building that exceeds 85 feet in height above grade, the project has to comply with skilled and trained labor requirements. And then there's prevailing wage obligations that come with that as well. But there's a carve out for, not for us, but for San Francisco in there. So unique rules that apply to San Francisco projects. And I don't know that there's anything nefarious there. It may be the case that they have stronger labor standards than would be required by state law, but there is a carve out there for San Francisco. But again, the purpose stated in the bill is to ensure fair compensation, workforce quality for projects that are going to benefit from this expedited CEQA review. So if you're going to benefit from it, pay the workers a quality wage, basically. Okay. So that's AB 130 in a nutshell. SB 131, I know that the key to this bill is really what's called the near miss streamlining. So it applies exclusively to housing development projects that would qualify for a statutory exemption or a categorical exemption, but for a single disqualifying condition. So the example that I've seen in other presentations on this is basically like you have a 100-unit apartment building in a downtown urban area, fully meets like a class 32 infill exemption, right? So it would meet the exemption, as CEQA exemption, under 5 acres, consistent with zoning and general plan, no significant traffic or noise impacts, except for the project, maybe it slightly exceeds like a noise ordinance during construction due to like an additional month of construction needed for foundational work on a small portion of the site. So it would meet an exemption, but for this one thing. And in those situations, the lead agency would then conduct a CEQA review that's limited to the noise impacts related to that extra month. So requiring like a so you'd analyze just that one additional impact, basically. So then you could put like a management plan in place. So limited hours, sound barriers, but it wouldn't require analysis of alternatives, cumulative effects, the growth inducement that's needed. It basically enables like a streamlined MND and then faster approval. And then you avoid a full EIR. So it's, again, that's why it's called a near miss exemption. So, but for that one thing, the project would qualify for a CEQA exemption. So we don't know, I don't know, Joe, but maybe, well, I won't put you on the spot, but we don't know how this will work in practice, but that's an example that's out there.
Yeah, and just in relation to that, it is beneficial because a lot of times when you do have that one kind of near miss, what ends up happening is then you have to go do the full document. And so that's significant cost and time evaluating things that would have normally been exempted if not for, again, that one issue, whether it's noise or something else. So rather than having to go forward and do like a full bio assessment and aesthetics and traffic and all these other types of things that would have kind of been seen as exempt, we can now just focus in on that one issue area. So again, helping to streamline and reduce the costs that would be put onto a potential developer. And as we talk about housing, those additional costs ultimately get reflected in the prices of those residential units.
All right, so then there's the housing element rezoning exemption as well. So SB 131 does create a new statutory CEQA exemption for rezonings that implement a jurisdiction's approved housing element schedule of action. So that basically means that any zoning change required by a certified housing element to meet RENA goals, it's now exempt from CEQA review under the Public Resources Code, but there are important guardrails that are in place. So the exemption would not apply if the rezoning would allow the distribution centers or oil and gas infrastructure. It also excludes natural and protected lands like wetlands, habitat for protected species, or lands under conservation easements. The bottom line is it basically allows an agency to rezone to meet housing goals quickly without CEQA delays, as long as we avoid industrial uses and basically respect kind of environmental red lines that are in place. So again, just keeping in mind that the goal of this is to streamline housing while still trying to like strike a healthy balance between that and necessary environmental review and considerations, right? So they aren't perfect, but that's kind of the goal. And this is a list of some of the other statutory exemptions that are now in place. And again, as you'll see, like they may not be directly about the creation of housing itself, but they're related to, right? Agricultural housing projects, so that one is directly related, but small disadvantaged community water systems, community water wildfire risk reduction projects, linear broadband deployments, daycare centers, rural health clinics, food banks, pantries, high-speed rail support facilities, et cetera. So they're tied to the creation of housing, but it's not necessarily like directly, building houses pretty much, or building units. So that's the overview of AB 130 and SB 131. I know that was quick, but that's, and again, so, if you have questions, some of the answers might be, hey, we don't know at this time, we'll get back to you. Because again, these are new laws, but we'll do our best.
And I do also just want to note, as you guys may remember, you guys actually have already approved an SB 131 with the food share project that came before. As they were preparing to do a more significant environmental document, this bill got passed. And so they were able to take advantage of that and help, again, reduce having to go through that much longer, more costly environmental process. And then also just in terms of the costs, again, those costs of those mitigating negative decks and EIRs have gone up significantly just in the past few years. There's probably a time where they were like $20,000 on average, and now we're seeing over $100,000 for those same types of documents. They've gotten much longer as additional studies have been required and as there are additional challenges that are put forward. So in order to kind of cover those off, there's much more analysis and things that are going into these that have, again, increased the cost significantly. So this bill, or these bills and together, are really trying to help minimize that, especially for these projects that we are trying to encourage. So it is overall, I believe, a benefit.
Well, thank you very much for that high-level overview. Mr. Zaragoza and Mr. Pearson, greatly appreciate it. And can I confirm that we got this presentation before City Council? Yes, okay, thank you, appreciate that. I know that Councilman Perello has been looking at this for the City Council. I'm not sure if you're gonna need to do one for them, but you can always direct them to this presentation. I thought it was quite a good overview. I have a couple questions, but I'm gonna defer to the commission with their questions if you have any, before going to mine. Let's see, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions, and thank you for the presentation. I very much appreciate the spirit, I think, and the goal of what these measures strive to do. And so just some notes and questions that came up during the presentation. Is this a temporary measure or a permanent new normal moving forward?
No, the bills are in place going forward. I didn't see a sunset date in them, so no, these are our laws.
No normal.
Yep.
And in basic terms, what does this mean or potentially mean for Oxnard? And is there any conflict or with the SOAR measures that we have adopted here locally and how those interact or intersect?
So, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, in terms of SOAR, this wouldn't change that. One of the things that this still requires is that it's compliant with the general plan and the zoning. So obviously, all the SOAR lands are designated as agricultural, so that wouldn't, these bills in and of themselves would not allow for the development of housing projects on like the SOAR lands or agricultural lands. Specific to Oxnard, it would essentially, again, just help streamline some of those projects as obviously the state and the city is seeing housing shortages and wanting to try to address those. This will become another tool to help push those projects forward, or even outside of housing, like the food share project, which is also an amenity for both the city as well as the county. It helps to push those projects forward or provide an easier path forward for those projects while still respecting the zoning and the general plan, which outlines the vision for the city. So, and then some of the other things that are still required, such as the consultation. So it still builds in some of those protections to make sure that we're, respecting, the heritage and things that are out there. But just also helping to streamline and reduce that costs and potential for challenges, where there's no real issues identified.
Great, thank you. And then I was thinking about the Teal Club project that came before us and how it was discussed that was likely the last potential urban village development that was available. Does this change that, and or are there any pieces of land, real estate that would potentially be developed for larger developments like that?
So in terms of Teal Club would be too large for something like this, and it included
Because of the 20
plan.
acres, or?
Yeah, Teal Club is like 150 or so acres. Additionally, that included a general plan and zone change. So also, and we'll address your question, but also one thing I just want to note here is it once again kind of puts that emphasis on the importance of the zoning and the general plan designations when a rezone or a general plan amendment is proposed. And once we allow those things, this again helps to streamline that. So once we kind of designate it for that use, there's less discretion in terms of preventing that use in the future. But in terms of other urban villages, so Teal Club was one. We do actually have another one of the city's urban villages currently in process. It's what's commonly referred to as the Mulhart property on the corner of Rose and Comune del Sol. The high school was recently developed there, but the rest of the land around it, it was a total of about 100 acres, is also considered to be an urban village per our general plan. So that project is actually in process. We're working on the EIR for that right now. Again, that would be too large for something like this. And I'm not sure if there's other urban villages. There's a property kind of off of Wainimi Road that's also not currently covered by SOAR. It was at one point referred to as the South Shore Project, which didn't move forward, but that is another site that is technically outside of the SOAR that could be a large development coming forward. But in large part, we are looking at infill development just based on the build out of the city at this point moving forward.
Perfect. And just because I had touched and name checked the Teal Club project, I know that when that item came before us, and now I'm drawing reference to slide number 14 with the labor requirement, I know that we had set that out with the prevailing wage, and then the city council scratched it off. So again, would this supersede that, and is that project not applicable to it because it came before this? Did it come before the July 1?
So Teal Club Teal Club had an EIR, so they didn't use this bill. So that prevailing wage requirement only apply in the event that they were trying to use this bill as a streamlining process.
Okay.
So it would not apply to, that project.
No, thank you for that clarification. I
also wanted to just add that would apply where there are 100% of the units that are restricted to low-income households.
Oh.
As well.
Great. Awesome, thank you. And so two other quick questions. There was something on slide 13 where it's mentioned deference to tribes on cultural resources. That has this been a factor here in Oxnard of us coming across anything belonging to Native people?
Commissioner Lopez, since I've been here, we have not had we regularly send out the tribal consultations. It's required when we have a mitigated negative deck or an EIR that we do that, as well as a few other things like general plan amendments. There's other state bills or state laws that are in effect that require that. Generally when we sent that out, we have not received a request for consultation on those. So generally it kind of runs the consultation period, and then sometimes we'll get comments back that simply say, ensure that you have a monitor on site during the excavation, or make sure that there's a phase 1 cultural resource report conducted and follow the recommendations of that report. But in general, we have not had a request for consultation on the project yet.
Nice, thank you for that background and information there. And just last question here, it's kind of like a catch-all, but with the bottlenecks that we experience here in the city, and more specifically the planning department, do we anticipate this helping in significant ways to impact our housing shortage?
That is a difficult question. So this, again, creates another tool for people to use. So we will be able to, projects will be able to get through in a more timely manner, as well as avoid the additional cost of a full-blown environmental document. However, there's still other parts that go into that. They still have to get their building permits. They still have to, and more importantly, finance the actual construction. We've got a few projects right now that are entitled, but just haven't moved forward yet. So while, yes, this is another tool to kind of help shorten that review period, there's other factors that essentially come into play when looking at the actual construction of housing and how they get from, the point where it's approved by this body or council or director to actually having the construction take place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for entertaining those questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Any others from the commission before my couple questions? And thank you again, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, because you struck out a couple of mine, so I won't be as verbose as I usually am. So I have two questions. The first, in regards to page 5, is there a limit? I saw the timelines, but is there a limit on the number of times a project can go? I thought there was, and has it been reduced or increased in this bill? The number of times a project can go in front of a government body.
So Chair Rejo, that wasn't impacted by this. There's still, and apologies, I can confirm, but I believe it's 5, no more than 5 hearings or public hearings for a qualifying housing project.
Okay, thank you. I remember it was 5 plus or minus 1 from mine and Commissioner Dr. Lopez's first year, so
Yeah.
thank you for that, just wondering.
Yeah.
So that would include, just to be clear, that would also include director hearings that we have that are part of that.
Acknowledged.
Those procedures.
Thank you for that. And then on page 9, in regards to the builder's remedy, I thought that builder's remedy was only applicable to cities that didn't have an housing element approved.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, perfect. That's all my questions. Any others from the commissioners before we move on to the next agenda item? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Zaragoza, Mr. Pearson. Greatly appreciate it. If you go in front of the council, well, we'll see what happens. So just advise council to look at this presentation if they have any and come up with more questions if you do need or want to present to them. So appreciate that. We will now move on to Section I, Planning Commission Business. Before we do that, Mr. Pearson, is there any other updates that you'd like to make at this time?
Oh, that's correct. So Chair Rejo and Commissioners, the only update is that the next meeting will be canceled. So this is the last meeting for the year. And then beginning with next year, there's a few projects that are looking to move forward. We have a housing project over in the Dunes area that is getting close to being ready to come before the commission, as well as another housing project over in the Colonia neighborhood, Harrison Apartments, which is also currently going through its consultation process, but will also be coming before the board.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And can I confirm that that next meeting will be the January 15th? Thanks.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure if they will actually make that first meeting, but they will be coming in the first part of the year, I would say. So the first meeting is January 15th. I'm just not sure if those projects that I mentioned will be going on that date.
Acknowledged. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move on to Section I, Planning Commission Business, Review of Parliamentary Procedures and Rules. I'll request kindly if Diego, if you could put on the presentation. And just as a preview to everyone, that I just wanted to do a little bit of a wrap up, just review of everything and add in a couple nuggets of information, just going forward, with this being technically the end of my term as chair of the Planning Commission. So I just wanted to bring this out for a couple of people. I have it in a question form for most of it. So what I'm going to do is ask question. You don't have to say the answers. Try to lock in your answer and see if you get it correct. So it should be somewhere from easy to maybe more difficult questions. But if anything, all of these questions have in some way have come up before the Planning Commission. So they weren't gotten from the thin air. So I just want to remind everyone, you know, like people usually ask, and I had to recently say like what the Planning Commission does. And so this is just, you know, the good one sentence. The mission of the Oxnard Planning Division is to create, preserve, and enhance the quality of the city's natural and built environments through the implementation of the general plan, zoning ordinance, adopted specific plans, local coastal plan, and the coastal zoning ordinance. And our role is to make sound land use decisions supporting the mission statement. And so we do a lot of things, but if someone wants that broken down in just to one sentence, you can tell them to go to the Planning Division or Planning Commission website on the Oxnard website, and they can see all the good stuff that our staff does and allows us to read and do the good work for the city. Let's see. So I have a couple of questions in regards to the meeting, how we conduct business here in the Planning Commission. So there's just three questions. What is not required to be disclosed at the commission meeting prior to the item being considered? There are 4 in our bylaws. Here there are at least one correct question or one correct answer for all the questions. So, but what is not required to be declared at our ex parte declarations? Site visits, conflict of interest, financial impacts, or previous meeting attendance. So I'll give you a couple seconds to lock in your answer or answers. And previous meeting attendance is not required to be there, but we also have, if you have ex parte communication, I didn't add that into the list because that was a gimme answer that you wouldn't, that'd be easy. So anyways, we're on to our next. How many minutes does an applicant have to present under a public hearing item? In our current bylaws, so this did change in the bylaws revision. I think that only really affected me, Commissioner Dr. Lopez, Commissioner Nash, and Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. We had 2 different, but in our current bylaws, do we give an applicant 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or the preference of the commission? So. Again, like I said, there's at least one right answer for all the questions. And so right now we have 15 minutes in our bylaws. However, we are able and we have been able to increase the time depending on motion in a second and a vote of the commission, or if the chair requests additional time and there's no objection. So 2 possible correct answers for that.
Chair,
Commissioner Nash.
I find it interesting that previous applicants have not gone beyond the 15 minutes.
Right.
So we do have a way to extend that, and that's good.
That's correct. And we also do have the option to decrease the time, although I've never seen us do that. If anything, we have given select members sometimes more time if they've had a public comment, but for the actual presentation, we have at one point, at least one time, given additional time. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I guess I have a general question. So
Yes.
we have bylaws. Let's say this commission as a whole decides that they want to do something that takes us outside of the bylaws or may even conflicts with those bylaws. Do we have the ability as a board up here to at any time vote unanimously that we want to do something that violates one of our bylaws?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yes. The easy answer is yes, we do. We have a provision called suspending the bylaws, but you can only suspend the bylaws for those bylaws that are in the form of a rule. So in general, we'll just use examples. We can suspend the bylaws for everyone, for two people to speak at once, and it needs a 2/3 vote. And so that's in the process, or that is in the form of a rule that is a meeting process. But we can't suspend a rule in terms of removing a chair or a vice chair, because that is not in the form of a rule. That is not in a meeting procedure. That is something that is a set action that needs to be done. So it's not processing a meeting, it's a separate action. So I think that's the easiest way to say it. So if it's in, it's how to make a meeting go, then you can suspend the bylaws by 2/3 vote. But if it's in terms of a type of topic, like how we do our elections, we can't just do it by appointment. So I think that's the easiest way to say it. So hopefully that answers your questions. There have been times when we've suggested suspending the bylaws for something, but there have been usually multiple ways to go about it. And so it will be up to the chair to suggest that in regards to the commission. So thank you for that, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission before we continue? So I have our final question for this section. Are meetings required to adjourn by a certain time? And if so, what time and any related information? So we have no, meetings are not required to adjourn by a certain time. Yes, 9 p.m. unless extended by majority. Yes, 10 p.m. unless extended by a 2/3 vote. Yes, 11 p.m. unless extended by a unanimous vote. I'll just say me and Dr. Lopez had, or Commissioner Dr. Lopez had much experience with this one. So if you lock in your answer, and it is yes at 10 p.m. unless extended by a 2/3 vote. Every time that we have gone, though, to the 10 p.m., we have been able to power through the 10 p.m. Without any objection from the commission, whether it's been under Commissioner or past Chair Commissioner Chavez, or I don't know if that's ever happened under my chairmanship. So anyways. So, and then a couple questions with parliamentary procedure that's specific to Robert's rules, but of course, that's what the rules that we fall under. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Just wanted to make a general comment. Myself and Commissioner Nash have been past the midnight hour in the past.
I apologize.
Previous commission.
I apologize for that. That was under your first times on the Planning Commission, so I apologize for that. And those were in person. Ours, mine and Commissioner Dr. Lopez was on Zoom, so it's slightly easier to get past the 10 p.m. So yeah. Just an overview again, what is Robert's Rules? Gives due regard to every member's opinion, makes decision with a variety of questions, hopefully in a very efficient use of time, and it's supposed to be suitable for any type of organization from just 2 to hundreds or thousands. So this should be relatively easy. How many main motions can be normally considered at the same time? 1, 2, 3, or 4. And it's only one we can consider a motion that has multiple items. We just went over that this meeting when we had the meeting, commission meeting and the 4 agenda items. You can always have a, what I would like to call compounded main motion, and they could be separated by request or demand of a vote to separate the items if they can be individually voted on. But you can always have a motion with multiple actions, and it's up to the chair and the commission to decide if it can be divided further or if it should be divided further. What motion can be made to change most pending motions? Previous question, postponing definitely, amending, or committing or referring. And we have done all 4 of these sometime at least in the last 5 years. So log in, and it is just amend. So you have a motion there. We want to amend what someone has properly made and seconded. Just to review very briefly, previous question, we think that deliberation has gone on too long. Someone moves the previous question, second, 2/3 vote, and we go directly into a vote. Postpone definitely, we just want to wait to bring out the item later in the meeting, either by time or by order into the agenda. And committing or referring, we would like it to go into discuss an item or a topic in committee. That basically happened when we had a bylaws revision. We referred bylaws revision to an ad hoc bylaws revision committee. And a couple more questions. A member does not know what parliamentary action to make. What can the member do to get the correct or recommended parliamentary action? Raise a parliamentary inquiry, raise a point of order, request for or raise a point of information, or simply ask the chair. And then a hint, there's at least one correct answer. And you can either, the more formal one is to raise a parliamentary inquiry or just to ask the chair. I'm not going to expect you to need to do parliamentary inquiry. Usually, many of you have been already comfortable enough to ask the chair, and I process it as a parliamentary inquiry just in terms of the rules so that everyone understands. But it is the chair gives their opinion. You don't have to follow it, and you can do whatever you want after that. If you do it, if the chair rules against you for some reason, you can raise a point of order if you disagree with it. And then if you still disagree with the chair, you can appeal the decision of the chair. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, did you have something? Oh,
You already answered it. I wanted to talk about point of order, but you went there.
perfect, yes. And Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
In the last part, you just said that you can motion to overrule the chair. Does that carry a minimum vote requirement?
Yes, so I'll state it really briefly because it has some special debate rules. So you raise a parliamentary inquiry, the chair says something, you do something, or the chair does something, you disagree with it, raise a point of order. If the chair doesn't, doesn't agree with your point, the chair disagrees with the point by the member, then you can appeal the chair. When you appeal the decision of the chair, when you do that, the chair will ask for a second, and then after that, the rules of the debate go that the chair gets to speak and defend their position. Everyone gets one chance to debate, and then the chair can have a conclusion debate. And that's the only time that you can only debate once. And then after that, the vote goes not to agree with the person who made the appeal, but the vote goes that the question is on sustaining the decision of the chair. And if it even just gets a tie vote, if there's an even number of members, the decision goes to the chair to sustain the decision. It just needs a majority vote, but a tie goes to the chair. So, yeah. And then I think this is the last question. How can the chair be temporarily removed from their duties? moving to suspend the rules, approving a committee of the whole by the chair's discretion and by absence. And you have seen at least, well, I gave the hint already, but anyways, lock in your decision for at least one of the correct answers. And all of them can be done. So as you've seen in my absence, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart has taken over. Sorry, I'm going backwards. By the chair's discretion, if I believe that I am not, or it will look like, or is actually a conflict of interest, I step aside from the chair and Vice Chair Dr. Stewart takes over, which you've seen once. We have gone into a committee of the whole when Commissioner Nash took over as Chair Pro Tem in terms of a particular agenda item topic. And you can also move to suspend the rules and remove me. It would need a 2/3 vote. So there are various ways to temporarily remove me from the chair, either for a limited or rest of the meeting. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, can you give me an example of suspending the rules to remove you?
Yeah, that's, I moved to suspend the rules to remove Chair Owejo from, Chair Owejo from the position of chair. Second is made, debate is made, and then if there's a 2/3 vote, then I will be temporarily removed from the chair for whatever duration is made in the motion.
So we talk about the process, but what would trigger that kind of a process?
Anything could. Usually, it would be because the chair, in your opinion, is not handling the meeting in the way that you think it should. Whether that's right or not doesn't matter. It's whether at least 2/3 of you think it's right. So, yeah. And I thank you all for letting me be able to give you a little bit of my knowledge in regards to parliamentary procedure. Again, like I said, if you have any groups or organizations that have the need or want, I'm trying to gain my experience into advising groups in their bylaws or their meeting procedures in the hopes of possibly becoming a professional registered parliamentary one day. So I greatly appreciate it. Before moving on to adjournment, I'll ask if there's any other general questions, comments before going to adjournment. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Am I assuming that the January meeting, we're going to be voting for chair and vice chair, or does that happen in a particular month?
Yeah, so I will formally request Mr. Pearson to put that if he thinks that it is the most efficient and likely for the meeting, but I'll defer to Mr. Pearson at this time for that question.
Next question.
Oh,
Okay.
wait, I'll ask Mr. Pearson first. I'll have an answer. Thank you.
So, yes, Chair Rejo and Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, the intent would be to bring that to the first meeting, which would be the January 15th meeting. I will coordinate with the chair, but yeah, that would be the meeting where the vote would take place. And if not, then we could continue that to the next meeting if there wasn't going to be, in the past, we've wanted all of the commissioners to be there. So if certain commissioners couldn't be there, we could potentially push that. But the intent would be to bring it to the first meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yeah, so right now we're on 2 cycles. Is the bylaws, and being lazy, I haven't looked it up, permit more than 2 cycles through, or is there a limit?
As of my last reading of the bylaws, there is currently no limit to the amount of times consecutively that any member can serve as chair or vice chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. If there are no one else at this time, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
A couple quick little notes here. So first, great job again to our staff and our chair on their presentations tonight. And maybe I should have said this earlier, but also great job to our secretary with the minutes that were prepared and adopted. I know it's a laborious task and it's not always a labor of love. So I wanted to recognize the minutes this evening. Given that it's our last meeting of the year, Happy holidays to everyone. Tamal Festival this weekend here in downtown Oxnard. If you're around and available, encourage folks to go. And of course, a happy and safe New Year. So see everyone in 2026.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. I, again, forgot that this was our last meeting for the year. Any others from the commission at this time? Yeah, I'd like to add on, thank you for, this has been a great term and a great time to be chair of the Planning Commission this past year. Very happy to have our new Commissioner Barcena here. Looking forward, hopefully soon, to a 7th member of the Planning Commission, but I'm glad to have been here serving as chair for this past year, and I look forward to the future, at least for the next 3 years of mine, Commissioner Dr. Lopez's, and someone else's, whoever needs for the next 3 years, or however long we're all spending on the Planning Commission. So thank you so much. Before we move to adjournment, I'm just gonna relay a brief funny comment. One of our former commissioners, you know, when I first became vice chair and chair, I was very self-conscious, and it was helpfully criticized to me, or I was kindly criticized that I felt a little bit too formulaic and wooden, and so I kind of laughed. I was kind of tickled when some former commissioner said that I made the meetings fun. So I hope that you all find it a little bit not as arduous as you might have think a government meeting is, and hopefully I can improve in whatever position I'm on the Planning Commission in the future. So I really appreciate that from our former commissioner. And with no further business, the meeting will be adjourned if there's no objection. Before we officially adjourn, I'm going to ask all the commission members to stay for a couple of minutes so that we can have a group picture. So the meeting is adjourned at 6:57 p.m. Thank you all and good night.